Do we have any reason to worry here about Tom Brady's
No. Well, first off, you were incorrect in your lead-in because he didn't spend any time answering the question. He spent a bunch of time avoiding the question.
Right.
He was being asked the question. He did not answer the question. No, I mean, here's the deal. You got 2 weeks between the Super Bowl. I mean, I would expect him to play at this point. I would expect him to take a little bit of time and to roll into that. So that's not a concern whatsoever. The hand's not going to be a concern. If he played last week, he'll be fine. Come Super Bowl week, he'll get the stitches out. I think that's a non-issue. The thumb is going to be a non-issue.
It would be an issue if it was the Bud Grant Vikings. If they were playing in Met Stadium outside. All right? Like if it was sub-zero. Like it might be an issue as far as overall feeling. But no, what he did last week, no, of course it's not going to be an issue. Also, Tom Brady and his dealings with the Super Bowl and the media, he's going to be able to handle that better because he's got so much experience at it. What he did last week should be evidence enough. But we, as broadcasters, journalists, we will continue to ask the question. He should have proven a lot of his doubters wrong after last week's performance.
And you're not concerned about the limited practice, because usually he's a big practice guy. So the fact that he wasn't 100%.
No, there were a bunch of guys that were limited yesterday.
It's the added part because it's the week off. Like if the game were Sunday and he's limited in practice on Thursday.
I still wouldn't be concerned.
No,
he was limited last week and carved him up.
Right, but last week that is what for you raised some alarm bells for you was because he wasn't practicing.
Yeah, Tom Brady went for a handoff. He's got 15 stitches in his hands. Yeah, alarm. Five alarm. Get out the house.
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
And so the point that I was trying to make is that if the game were Sunday, he wouldn't have been as limited in practice. I don't believe. I think this was extra precautionary.
What you're doing right now is you're managing your roster.
Right.
That's what you're doing. And you're saying, hey, listen, how important is practice this week when we're going to go through the whole so you'll put your game plan in, and you'll work on it Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, then you'll take it to the Super Bowl and you'll do the same exact reps, the same exact game plan Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So now you're juggling, or you're looking at the juxtaposition of how important is practice and going through it this week versus rest and getting our guys well. And you're looking at guys like me. This week I wouldn't have practiced, or I'd have taken very limited reps. Hey, we need you on this particular blitz. Hey, Stink, we need you to run this particular play action fake that we want to run.
Yes.
But these are every day it may be 3 or 4 plays. I want you in this play. I want you in this play. My O-line coach will say this play, this play, this play. The rest of the week, we want you to get your legs right. Because when we hit Super Bowl site, we want you humming, and we want you ready to play. And so right now it's this battle of attrition that is the National Football League season, and they've got guys beat up, and you want to give them some rest, especially your older players. You got to get their legs fresh.
But I do think this is an opportunity for us to revisit exactly what happened this last Sunday, because Chris, you brought it up Monday, and then there's a lot of things going on. There's new stories. There's all this NBA drama, and I don't really know if it got the full attention it deserved, which was, and it's odd to say, but the extreme, unique pressure Brady particularly was under on Sunday. Because Wednesday, he's going for a handoff, as you mentioned, cuts his hand open. It ends up with, 12, 15 stitches in his throwing hand.
Yes.
There is the story surrounding the team that the reason they don't have the best backup quarterback in the league is because Brady didn't want him there. Enough to which the owner, before the game, says, we're going to be fine as long as everyone's ego is in check. If during that football game Brady had played terribly, or if during that football game that the tape hadn't held and all of a sudden the stitches bust open and Brian Hoyer's out there taking snaps, think about what we were talking about Monday. Is this the greatest athlete in the history of athletes? Obviously the greatest quarterback ever. Maybe the greatest football player. That was discussion Monday. If this goes the other way for him, it's not only are we not having that discussion, we're talking about, wait, did Brady's ego cost the Pats a chance to go to another Super Bowl? Brady a chance to win another one? And the pressure that was almost self-inflicted and then exacerbated by the injury. You mentioned it Monday. I don't think we spent enough time on it because when you look back on it, it's really remarkable how this thing ended up turning out for him and for the team.
Yes, and the stitch, the actual injury, the stitching, you want it to harden. You don't want it to reopen. So why jeopardize, take that? It would be almost like they were last week if they reopened the cut. They would have to stitch him back up, and he would have to go through the healing process again. So it doesn't make sense because one bad snap or throwing the laces, like, just let it heal. Like, he proved to us last week that the injury wasn't significant. It wasn't high enough on his thumb to affect his throwing. So, no, let it heal. Be smart about it.
Yeah. No, you have to let it heal. You have to be smart about it. And I'll tell you one thing that's really interesting to me as we go into the Super Bowl, the pressure squarely, in my mind, on the New England Patriots.
How come?
Everybody sits there and says, oh, Nick Foles. No, Nick Foles. Listen, I've played 3 Super Bowls. 2 of them, we were 7, 8-point favorites. I got done with those playing in those games. I felt nothing but relief. Like the pressure of the week being the favorite and knowing what's at stake. One with the Redskins and one with the Broncos. It was not, like, the week was fun preparing, but the game was relief.
And you guys were big underdogs in your first Super Bowl with the Broncos, right?
First Super Bowl, we were 13-point underdogs to kick off, or to start the week, 11.5 at kickoff. And that, honestly, it felt like playing on house money. It just was like, nobody expects us to be here. Nobody expects us to win. Let's go out here and shock the world and prove to them. Like, I didn't feel any pressure. I felt pure joy and just this euphoric feeling after we won that game. And a completely different mindset from those two. So to me, pressure all on the New England Patriots. This is about legacy and about history and about 8 championships, 8 times at the Super Bowl and trying to win your 6th championship. I mean, that to me is pressure. What the Eagles, the Eagles fly, Eagle fly. Put the dog mask on. Let's go out and play.
Mark, do the Eagles get enough credit for how good this roster is, really, from top to bottom?
No, they don't. And I've said it, well, as soon as people have started asking me. I think they're a better roster than New England. I don't think you can argue that top to bottom they have a better roster. Now, they've had some injuries, yeah, and they're playing with a backup quarterback, but they're a talented roster. And then to listen to Malcolm Jenkins talk about the quality of the locker room, you start thinking about you're LeGarrette Blount, and you're there, and all of a sudden you're running with Jay Ajayi, and you've got to trade those reps and to be able to play for one another, not to be greedy that way, but to be able to sacrifice for one another, play for one another, it does show you what kind of locker room they actually have. But, yeah, they're an exceptionally talented roster. It's just that you're playing with a backup quarterback and everybody goes, oh,
right.
It's Nick Foles. And Nick Foles, in the right system, what Doug Peterson has put him in there, you've seen, what he's capable of doing. And he showed it years ago when he was with Chip Kelly.
And it's what you can really look at is this offseason and last offseason, the additions they made. I know everyone focused on what they drafted Carson Wentz, guy from North Dakota State at number 2 overall, is like the key moment. But this offseason, he mentions adding Patrick Robinson. You had Alshon Jeffrey and Torrey Smith. You, by the way, Nick Foles wasn't on the team. They brought him in. They decided to let Chase Daniels, their backup quarterback, go. They bring in Nick Foles. You mentioned LeGarrette Blount and Jay Ajayi, 2 guys that were not on the team last year. Jay Ajayi wasn't even on the team at midseason. And then on defense, of not as many additions, but a few key additions, most notably Timmy Jernigan and Ronald Darby. Like, you saw this team all of a sudden.
Those are both trades, yes.
Yeah, but they were acquisitions, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
From this offseason, guys, and the Timmy Jernigan trade, they just gave up like 25 spots in the draft to get Ronald Darby. They gave up Jordan Matthews, and in addition to a draft pick, I believe. But they were what you saw, Howie Roseman, who's been with Philly forever, but had kind of his power taken from him when Chip Kelly was there. Once he reasserted control, looking at the team this offseason, he clearly believed they were closer than I thought they were, that we need, so we're going to add some veterans, we're going to add some key pieces on offense to help our quarterback, some key pieces on defense like Timmy Jernigan where we're already good, and that's how you have a roster that you're saying is, man-to-man against the Patriots, the better of the 2 rosters. Like, it's a testament to how they built this football team.
Yeah, I thought it was a great roster. I thought that they had unbelievable depth. I thought that their attack on defense and offense, it matched their personnel. I think that, Howie Roseman, he won't get enough credit for what he's done. Also, you have a first-time head coach. When you're making trades, when you're bringing deals to the coach, you want the coach to focus on the personnel and how they're going to play, teaching the game and what's the right tack. Man, you got a guy in the front office that's getting you the right type of players. As Bill Parcells said, he wanted to pick the groceries. But as a young coach, you don't need to pick the groceries. You need someone you trust, someone you feel connected to, that you can play and think alike, that he's going to acquire the same type of players that are going to play. And also, which I think people miss, is the locker room, the veterans, and the type of human beings. Look at Chris Long. Look at Malcolm Jenkins. Look at some of the things that these guys stand for. When most of these teams are very, very young, you need some stand-up old veterans to be in that locker room to let that they give you a championship mentality. People are like, well, Chris Long, he's only with New England. But, man, he knows what it's like to win. He knows what it's like to prepare and to keep guys on an even keel every day. It's vital to have older guys that have been through NFL battles, and they have done a tremendous job in Philadelphia as far as the last 2 years since Howie has taken back over, gained control of that roster. That's the result. No, we give them they're in the Super Bowl. Right. People are like, do you give them enough credit? They're in the Super Bowl. I mean, what do you want us to do?
I think you make it a good point, and you piggybacked off that. The reason that people, I think, don't give them enough credit is because their quarterback, the face of this team right now, is Nick Foles, who people have a lot of questions surrounding. So my question then was going to be, with this team, who's the leader? There's not, I mean, is it a Malcolm Jenkins? Like, who's the guy in the locker room that stands up when Doug Peterson walks out and says, okay, this is what's going to. Is there a guy? Do they have a guy like that on this team?
They have some very good video on NFL.com. If you watch Malcolm Jenkins, you see him talking and everything. But I think sometimes that's overstated. You don't, because you got a pack. You got 53, 60 guys. There is no one guy that can galvanize the whole team. So even like in New England, Tom Brady's not getting up yelling at the offense and the defense. Now, he talks to the offense. So sometime when you have group leaders, you have veterans sprinkled in and out the locker room. In the offensive line, they got Jason Peters. Yep. Carson Wentz now is running the specialty guys. Right. Alshon Jeffries, they got him. His leadership, being unselfish, which allows Nelson Aguilar to move to his natural spot in the slot. When you see that guys buying in, those are the types of things that speak louder than some guy in the locker room standing up saying, hey, guys, we're getting ready to do this.
Right. I think one of the big things with championship organizations, and you look at Philly, both lines of scrimmage, that's where the majority.
Offensive and defensive line.
That's where their guys are. Whether it's a Jason Kelsey, you mentioned Peters, who's hurt now, but Lane Johnson and Brooks has played great at the right guard position.
Wanuski, who they brought in.
Yes. So, I mean, you've got guys there that control the tempo. And, it's interesting at practice. If you can't control the tempo in the trenches, nobody gets to have a very good practice. It gets bogged down. You can't execute. Your quarterback's under duress and the timing of the routes. So I think you look at both lines of scrimmage with the offensive line, with a guy like Fletcher Cox, with Curry, with Jernigan, with all those guys they have. That's what sets the tempo. They've got a bunch of dudes that go out there and grind. And that's a great tempo setter. And when you have that on a football team, your football team is going to be pretty good.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.